Okay, Mercury retrograde is still in full blast. Technical issues galore, but fortunately ending. Ending at the end of this week. So that is exciting news. So everybody, welcome to Metaphysical Happy Hour. I am your host, Cassie Clayton. My specialty is doing website logos and graphics design for spiritual business owners. And Elba, this is your premiere on the show officially.
Thank you for having me. I am so excited to be here with you guys and to meet Leslie and hear all about what she's doing. But I am a psychic medium as well as a life coach. And I'm so glad that this retrograde is about to be over.
Almost over. Yes. So yes, and just so moving forward, Elba is going to be our new co-host of the show. Tracy has gone to go do other things, and we wish her all the best.
Yes, we do.
So she's got a lot of really cool, exciting things going on. So definitely go over and check her out. But today we have Leslie Martin joining us. She goes by Past Life Leslie, and just a little bit about her is that her vision is to make holistic healing accessible to all, regardless of their geographical location, which is why she offers her sessions and readings remotely, enabling you to embark on your healing journey from the comfort of your own sacred space. Her mission is to provide you with the tools and insights necessary to delve deep into your subconscious, uncover your past life memories, and tap into the vast reservoir of cosmic knowledge in your own Akashic records. So without further ado, Leslie, we are so excited to have you with us.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here, Cassie. Thank you for that beautiful introduction, and nice to meet you, Elba. Yes, I love helping people understand past lives that are affecting their current life and just the great wisdom that we all have within ourselves.
Amazing. So so tell us a little bit about how you got started. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started. Give us the deets.
I'll give you the deets. So how in the world did I get into this crazy career? Because I was a corporate recruiter for a very long time. But I actually got started way before I became a recruiter. I just didn't know. So how that got triggered for me was I was actually a very young lady in college when I got triggered about a past life. And I started grieving a daughter I did not have. A family friend ended up losing her teenage daughter. And my dad said, oh, by the way, when you see Mrs. So-and-so, because I worked at the bank with her while I was in college, he said, don't mention her daughter because she just passed away last night. So very common thing. We all went to church together. I grew up in a church my whole life. And the minute that he said that, something just, again, it flipped. And I started grieving. And I couldn't, I was not that close to her. I mean, we were all went to church together, but we weren't super close. And it just kept growing to the point that I one time went into the bathroom and hid just to cry because I could feel what she was, I could feel that grief of losing a child. So, for me, it was common sense though. I didn't have any children. Obviously I was in my 20s. And it was just like, this cannot be from this lifetime, but something is really real is happening. Mm-hmm. So fast forward, I ended up finding Dr. Brian Weiss books, and I had been, looking for answers. I moved away from the town I grew up in, so I moved to Nashville. That's where I live, Nashville, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And ended up training with Dr. Weiss. I found out that he actually was training at the Omega Center. And jumped into that with both feet and spent a glorious week at the Omega Center. We had Dr. Brian Weiss and his wife, Carol. It was an amazing process. And that's when I really got the full answer of that thing that had happened so long ago, but had still I was just obsessed at that, most of my life, or I don't know if obsessed is the right word, but I was definitely very, very interested in other lives because they were, it was obvious that was really impacting this lifetime. That's how I got into it and trained with Dr. Weiss, and then just kept working with the process. And I guess the rest is kind of history now because I'm doing Akashic record readings and Galactic Akashic records reading, which a lot of people are like, what's that? But yeah, so that's how I got into it. I had gotten triggered and really wanted answers. And it was the most healing thing I've ever done for myself. And I just needed to get that out for other people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that experience probably would have had me think about it the whole time too, until I found an answer or where that comes in. I know for me with mediumship, it was having something happen, and I knew that message meant something, and that's what made me pursue my mediumship. But that is really interesting to know that you didn't have a kid, and then you're like, wait, why do I feel this way? But that's super interesting.
Yeah, it was very, very palpable, and there's I don't know that I felt any kind of grief like that ever. And it was not healed in the lifetime, whether I did actually lose a daughter, and therefore because it was never healed or addressed, it was still an active energy in this lifetime. And that's something I like to explain to people. That's why this work is important, because you don't really understand. Like, for example, I just did a session with a gentleman who had this overwhelming need to travel the world. And there was some other things that went along with that, but he also has a daughter. And so he was conflicted in this, dream of traveling the world. Well, he finally did the regression with me, and he was a pirate, for lack of a better word, terming it, in another lifetime. And he loved being on the ships because they went on all these adventures and traveled the world. And at the end of our session, he said that's where that longing kept coming from, because it was kind of his claim to fame too during that lifetime, that he was this big pirate and had gotten some notoriety, and he had all these stories to tell. So it was an interesting thing for him to see. Oh, I can't hear you, Cassie.
Yeah, you're on mute, Cassie.
I have since people walking by. Sorry about that. So for me, I've always found Akashic records to be a little bit more elusive. Because if I'm doing a like tarot reading or a psychic reading, or Elba and I know, like when we're doing a mediumship reading, they're usually verifiable facts that people know that they can verify with. And so for me, when it comes to Akashic readings, it's very difficult for me to kind of go, okay, that's super tangible. So here's my question. What makes an Akashic reading an Akashic reading versus psychically tapping into somebody?
I think it is just the practice of because I've not done psychic medium work where I tap into a person's whatever you're tapping into, because I've never trained in that. So what I'm doing is a certain protocol, and then we open the records, and then they ask questions, and then I go into the records, and I start to see what the records have to say. It's usually a visual for me in the beginning. But it's interesting because I remember other people have said, well, I think those are kind of a little loosey-goosey because they can say anything. This is a newer tool in my tool belt. So I've been learning a lot as I've been doing them. And what's been fun for me is I've been able to access information for people that they do tie back to things that they knew about, but I did not know about. I'm telling them what I'm seeing and what's being shown to me. So that's been fun to get the verification. Some people are quite happy to say, well, you didn't know this, but she was in love with going back to the country, for example. It's just one thing that I heard. And the whole past life, or the Akashic record karmic tie had to do with a life where they were in the country. So things that are very verifiable can be found there. It's just, I think, a matter of, one is helping a person know what questions to ask, really helping coach them better at what to ask. And I'm always trying to hone that skill. And then also really paying attention to the little details you see, because you'll see things and you may not think it's important, but I'm finding that it is very, very important to share those things, as you probably do as a medium as well.
Yeah. So I have a question as to is there any connection to reincarnation? And because I've viewed a few like videos, like, when people are reincarnated, but then as the child grows up, they forget about that past life, right? Does that make sense?
Right. So is your question, so is what tied to the reincarnation?
Is the past life connected to the reincarnation?
Right, it is. So so it's another timeline that you had a different experience. So when I do a past life regression, more often than not, people come to me for something that they want to heal or unblock or clear, etc. And so the past life is another form of that spirit. And sometimes they're vastly different, and sometimes they're weirdly similar, and sometimes you're repeating the same lifetime because you've committed suicide, for example. And I've had several suicide clients that did not really talk about that. They weren't really open to talk about their suicidal ideations and tendencies that came out right off the bat, which now I know how to handle. But yes, it's tied to a past life. And I'm not here to go into any sort of religious debate, because for me, I know I haven't got everything done and the way in one lifetime. There's no doubt in my mind that I've been here before. There's too many things that have come about for myself and for my clients to say, okay, it's common sense that we come back and do better and do better and do better. And that tends to be the pattern I see. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, 100% it did. Because it's like the infinity, we always come back, that whole part of us. I think where I got stuck at before I started doing mediumship was I was stuck at the point where I thought death was death. And I thought, and I think that's why I grieved so much, because I was just like, how could they not physically be here? Like, where are they at? But when I started getting the signs and they started coming forth, and I was just like, oh, there's something there that I don't understand. So let me look into another psychic medium. So I had a reading, and it was a portrait reading. And I was just like, yeah, there's no denying that this person knows who my grandpa is and why he's stepping forward.
I love that for you. Yeah. I love that for you, because just discovering that we don't really end, and that there's such a rich continued experience on the other side. I do energy healing as well. I'm a big fan of more the quantum level energy healing. And that's when I'm really in your energy. And that's when their loved ones will step forward in my healing room. And that's when it's almost like this is not my show. This is their show. And it's just a beautiful thing, because it's almost always someone, just usually amazing thing that's been heavy on their heart, for example. I don't do a lot of that work. I tend to do more past life stuff. But when I have I do programs and life coaching and things like that, especially people who are trying to really open up their lives and remove blocks so they can attract the love of their life that they're looking for. I have some programs around that. We'd start doing energy work. That's part of that usually. And it's always fun to see who's going to step forward and how, I never know. It's almost like turning on the light and just surprise,
Yeah.
but that's fun.
Yeah. Well, so I one of the questions I have is, what is is there a relation? So you say, I feel like we kind of talk about the different modalities as like one is separate from the other. Yeah. Is there a connection between the hypnotherapy and the energy work that you do and the Akashic records, or are they just like completely separate, or do you get the information doing either modality?
So the energy work feels, for me, and I may eventually change my mind on this, but for me, the energy work does feel separate, because it's really, it's almost a manifestation tool I've been using because it's in the quantum field, whether it's a physicality or whatever they're trying to manifest. So that one's a little bit separate. Now, for me, what I have found that's fun, and they're very similar for me, the Akashic record reading, the galactic Akashic record reading, and the past life regression. Really, the biggest difference is the questions that they have. And more often than not, so far, when someone is interested in how am I connected to this person, is a real common Akashic record reading question. And it's very straightforward. And I typically will go in and see how they have ever interacted before. But it's still what happened in the past, how are we connected? The past life regression is very similar to that, but it's them going back, and it's almost always around something that needs to be healed, like some energy that's still coming in that you didn't address. And I think that has a lot to do with how I got trained. Dr. Weiss is a psychiatrist, and he did most of this type of hypnosis for healing physical issues or mental issues that a patient was having. How he accidentally stepped into this because he had a patient who couldn't swallow pills. And we all know psychiatrists are very, very big about prescribing pills to fix a lot of things. And so I won't rehash his story, but basically he had a lady who could not swallow. And then so he finally had to learn how to do hypnosis, and he accidentally took her back to a past life because the directive was go back to when the symptoms began. Well, the symptoms began when she got hung, and she couldn't, her throat was collapsed, and that was never addressed. So she had like so many things going on. So as every time they would go back and she would see it, just seeing it is very healing. So that was how he realized there's something here to these multidimensional aspects of our humanness and our spirit. And then, oh shoot, I lost my train of thought. But anyway, so that is how he got into this, and said by proxy, I tend to attract and am really focused on things that are still coming in that are either blocking you. Like I had a lady who was had a jealousy issue, and that was definitely from a past life, where she, obviously had issues with a cheating husband. This lifetime, her husband was fine, but he couldn't breathe correctly without her, being concerned about what he was doing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, which is super not fun to hang out with. But she just turned that around really quick. So I don't know if I answered your question. To circle this back around, because I got off on a tangent there. I think the past life and the Akashic records are very close together. To me, they're side by side. It just depends on what you're trying to get after, right?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and I feel the psychic medium is there too. You just need that tool to get there.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I really have to trust those things, and that's like we were discussing, Elba. I have learned that if I just trust what I'm being shown and start down that road, Spirit always opens up and shows what the person what I need to communicate for the person. So if I just show up in service and trust, I will. It has been a beautiful thing. But when I keep second guessing or not sharing, when I very first started doing the readings, there was so many times where I didn't share something. But I got lucky in some of my first sessions where the person asking the questions was like, "Oh, and they would bring up things that I had seen, but was thinking, oh, this is crazy. I shouldn't."
Mhm.
And I did this thing where I just went next.
Yeah.
And that was important. And so I got really lucky right off the bat with learning that really early on.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with mediumship too. It's
Yeah.
like just bringing forth, trusting it if it means something. And if it doesn't, put it to the side. Just you can always go back to it, but bring it forth.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Now I'm excited to just continue to learn more because there's so much that happens for a person when they do get those answers, or just like what happened with you, when that person steps into a different paradigm about what life is about, why are we here, what's our purpose, and the fact that we go on and that we've been with the grandfathers and the moms and the dads and the children, and God forbid you lose one, or even your fur babies, they come back, and so it's interesting. One thing I have learned that I will share, and people that know me well know that I say this all the time: people, you get away with nothing. It's all energy. So just mind your manners, and as they say, the golden rule: do unto others. Because if you steal, or you cheat, or you lie, or just fill in the blank, it always comes back around.
Yeah.
It's the most beautiful thing, and it will set your mind at ease. So I don't watch the news anymore, but there was a time where I used to, and I would think, I cannot believe how many people are going around robbing, and I used to get caught up in some of that drama, and now I'm like, they'll be coming to see me. I can figure out why people keep stealing their shit, but are my friends, but that's really what happened.
It's true. Yeah, you start filtering out everything. I think going down a healing journey, I started recognizing that I had to filter the music, the friends, the family, the everything. Everything is under that umbrella, because if I were to stay connected to everybody's sad story, it's like I'm stuck there because I want to help them, and I'm forgetting about who I am and my dreams and where I want to be at. So it's beautiful when you can just filter everything out, because you'll become the person that you want to be.
Well, and I've often said, like, for me, people will get, a family member will tell me this sad story, and if I go and join them in their sadness, then I am literally adding to the energy that's incorrect, because they are their own hero.
Yes.
And as long as you hold that space, for me, that is the strongest space I can hold for a person to say, I am very sorry you're in this situation, but I know you are strong enough to get yourself out of it.
Yes.
And not everybody wants to hear that when they've got that drama, secondary gain energy going on, and they're still very much in victimhood. That was one thing that was probably the best thing that I got out of my training, is I walked away from being a victim. And I also took a huge slice of humble pie. It was the most humbling thing I've ever done. And I'll just tell you, I'll just air this out for everybody. But when I went in there, I had a really difficult relationship with my dad. Very, very difficult. And I was very much it had been put on me. I'd been, I was a kid, he was a parent, etc. Same story, bad, strict, not very nice dad. Those are all the stories I had in my head. So I'm laying in session, and everybody's regressing back. I'm going back, and I see the life that I had in Italy, where I did lose the daughter. Her name was Anna Maria. And I also saw that my husband was my dad in this lifetime, which is a little weird, but until you're there and you're actually experiencing and walking in the shoes of, I was a very fat Italian woman, and I was a baker. Anyway, we owned a bakery, and long story short, he decided to not do his chores that day, to stay and flirt with some women in the shop, and sent our daughter out to do his chores, and she got in, ran over, basically an accident. It was an accident, but I blamed him.
Wow.
And I was not very nice. So guess who started this whole mess? Guess. It was not my dad/husband. It was me.
Oh.
I got to see how my actions and our roles were completely reversed in this lifetime. And and I'll spare you the rest of the details, but it was a beautiful story to unfold. It definitely needed to be healed in this lifetime, and I couldn't have been more sorry for the way I behaved. And then I just dropped all of that with him. I was just like, okay, well,
Yeah.
how about that? Because we all think we're just, we don't ever think that we've been this horrible person.
Mhm.
And most of the people I talk to, they don't have ideation to murder people or, kick someone out and let them die in the street. They just don't have that. But these things do happen and have happened. And it's okay, because now you've learned, and now you've really learned when you see it through the modality of the regression. It was a beautiful thing, and I couldn't have been more grateful to be like, I put down my swords, I put down all my weapons, and I just thank God for that gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next question I'm going to ask is, are there any potential risks or drawbacks? Or is there any situation that you've come across where you would maybe not recommend, like that you would maybe recommend a different modality than doing past life regression with someone?
I have, and I do. And I have been when I first started doing this, there were people that wanted to do a regression. And what they were getting after was more on the best way to put it is it was more at a third dimensional level goal. And that means, like, I really want to understand why the man I'm having an affair with won't leave his wife and be with me, for example. I want to understand, or I need to understand more often than not, it's how to get him to love me and not, whoever else they're with. So those are situations where this is just not going to be the modality to get them what they want, which is, and if as a psychic medium, you may have ran into people wanting readings around this subject. And it is, to me, a better person for a reading or a Akashic record reading, because the regression is going to show them something more in the direction of healing or a bigger picture of themselves that they may not be ready to see. And that has happened, and it went right over their head. And, I learned my lesson, and really just doing a better job of vetting what they're after, what their real goal is, just having a real conversation with them. So that is the main thing. If they're really, so many people come and they're like, I'm just done with this issue. And I did have a lady that came back around into my life about 5 years later. When I first met her, it was all about why this guy would not marry her. They were that on again, off again. And we didn't end up doing the regression because she was scared. But then by the time, at 5 years of this roller coaster ride with this guy, she decided that she just was ready to heal, no matter what the answer was. And she got an amazing answer about what was really going on. And it had nothing to do with him, which blew her mind at first. But then as the story unfolded, she realized, once again, she was the driver. She had been creating all of this through a past life where she had gotten abandoned. So she was keeping everybody at arm's length and didn't realize that she was the one that actually had her hands out. Anyway, it blew her mind. And she's one of my reviews on Google, that she said it just completely shifted her life, and she realized she was the one either letting people in or not, while this whole time the mirror was thinking he was the one keeping her out. Anyway, it was really cool, and I'm very happy that she's finally sort of graduated from this part of her life, and she is she's doing really well.
Good. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I heard you say earlier, it kind of stuck to me when you had mentioned about how we could be living with somebody that we feel so deeply connected to, right? Because that's how I feel with my fiance. It feels like there's this deeper connection. I remember in the past that we would say a certain word, but it was the exact same word that came out of our mouth that was just unfathomable. Like I couldn't even think about like saying a certain word, and it's happened to us multiple times.
Uh-huh.
Is that like, is like there a connection there? Like,
For
because
sure.
it's just very interesting, and I would always think about like, what does that mean? What does it mean? Is it like, is that a soulmate? Is it somebody that a twin flame? I have no idea.
Well, there's a possibility of all those things, but it definitely tells you, one, your energy is connected in this lifetime. But when you got together the very first time, did it feel like home? Did it feel familiar?
Yeah,
Anything,
it
anything
felt,
like that?
it felt just like that. It felt like it was meant to be.
Yeah. So, and that is generally the first thing that's like, okay, there was another connection before. Um, Sometimes people will say, just when sent, like someone sent, will send them over the moon, and they've never had that before, or then saying the same things at the same time, or having that weird twin thing where something will happen. It's just constantly the same thing happening over and over again. But all of those are just beautiful little soul, taps that say, hey, y'all known each other before. This was predestined, this was planned, and you're pre-planned. Because as we go to the other side, you plan your whole next incarnation with whom you're with. And that's why sometimes the people that are the worst people to you are actually dearest to you on the other side, because they volunteer to play the bad guy
Yeah.
for you as a mirror, for
Yeah.
example. Or they have decided to rekindle this beautiful, loving relationship to help each other grow in a certain way. Because it's really all about growth, and it's really learning to love both the light and the dark that
Yeah.
we all have.
Yeah.
Like I said, I saw myself behaving in a way I would never act today. And so that's another reason why when I do this work, some people get worried or concerned I'm going to see something and judge them because they've got some sort of ideation that they not really want to talk about. Like,
Yeah.
for example, most of the people who have committed suicide, I just don't want to judge anything at all, because we've all done all kinds of stuff, both good and bad. So that it's interesting to see yourself in these other shoes, or hear stories about how you've had other lifetimes. But I guess the moral of the story is we've all been good and bad, and so we just want to, that's some of the shadow work that a regression will help you with.
Yeah.
Is making friends with the one who actually decided to end their life.
Mm-hmm.
Those are bigger, heavier topics, but it's a beautiful thing when a person's ready to do that.
Yeah. Most definitely.
Yeah.
I find it so fascinating.
I do too, and I still do it.
Cassie, does anything trigger for you right now, like growing up, or?
I mean, I'll put it this way. There's some times where, like, I think for me it's more with dreams, because there are sometimes, like, I could have sworn as a kid, like, I gone tumbling down the stairs or something. Could have sworn it. Never happened. but there was a dream that I had where it had.
Okay.
So, but it was real enough that in my brain, it had happened. But
That's
you know,
interesting.
but I also get flashes of information through my dreams. If I'm trying to figure out a computer issue, a lot of the times it'll get answered in my sleep. It actually happened while I was laying down earlier today. So for me, it's kind of more just getting those intuitive hits, those psychic things that, or like sometimes I get the information that hasn't happened yet, and I'll get that information, and like maybe years later it makes sense.
Well, you brought up a good thing, Cassie, and I want to ask both Elba and Cassie, do you have any, or have you ever had a reoccurring dream?
Yes.
Yes, I have.
More often than not, that is a past life. And that's just the energy coming in and going, hey, this happened. Perhaps you want to look at it.
Yeah. Well, most definitely I was a bird, because I always have this dream of where I'm just flying. Like, it is the most weirdest dream, but I can just feel myself like flying over houses and like just easily. And it's a very reoccurring dream for me.
Okay, that's interesting.
So, yeah.
We can do it. We can go back and see exactly where that's coming from. What is yours, Cassie?
So it's funny because I do have a recurring dream about flying. I remember this as a kid, but it was one of those where it was like sometimes I was able to take off and sometimes I was not. And so there was always that like, wait, why is it not? Or like sometimes I will end up having the dreams where it's like in somewhere in the middle of the dream, I know it's a dream. And I'll literally stop the dream in its tracks and change it and go in a completely different direction. Yeah, dreams have always been very interesting for me because
yours is a little different.
Yeah, I'm like, and I will say this, right? It was interesting because right before the pandemic, because there is this reoccurring dream that I have where it's like I'm in the water and there's like massive, I mean like crazy like story high waves, but it's kind of like I always end up at the top of them and just on, you know, it's like on the one side of the wave you'd get tumbled down and on the other side of the wave you get like just safely down. So I'm always on that side of like,
well, that's nice.
That side that brings you back down wut like tumbling over, right? Like it's always kind of that like, whoop.
Everything's always working out for me.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because right before the pandemic, I had this exact same dream, except when the wave passed, I did not move from the space I was in. It was just like there was nothing all of a sudden. And I was like, and I had this thought of, well, this is different. I've never, like, I've had this dream before, but we've never been in this space before. Yeah. And then I woke up.
Okay.
And that was probably just but I remember that being probably just a couple months, even just before the pandemic hit.
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. Usually it's like what you're talking about, Elba, where it's the same one. A lot of times in spirit, when you're spirit, your energy and you can fly. And so sometimes people, when they have the flying one, it is a memory of the in-between life where you're spirit and you're a guide. You could perhaps be in a guide, or perhaps you're just, flying with the other angels around. So
that kind of makes sense right now that you bring that up, because I'm on my healing journey, because I know when you really do your healing, you heal 7 generations back and 7 generations forward, right? So maybe that's probably why it's coming in, because I will never stop working on myself and self-growth and learning how to love myself. I think that was the very first thing. So it's just it's a beautiful thing, because I no longer want to inflict hurt on my family or my kids. And whether other people's experience right now, because I am on my healing journey and I have set
Mhm.
boundaries, that I no longer allow them past those boundaries. So I become the villain in their story. But for people that accept me for who I am, will definitely get a different person that's not triggered and that's not unconsciously inflicting the same generational trauma.
Right, right. And it is, and so I don't live close to my family, so it's easier for me to be separate from that. To be in the middle of it and doing that is brave. And I applaud you for that, because there is nothing more triggering than those clogged pipes in your
Oh,
family. I mean, it's just, it's the worst. I love my family, but I
yeah.
mean, there's some stuff. And I'm sure we all can relate to that.
Yes.
That's
I think everybody can relate.
Right?
they can. And the best thing you can do is be that leader of the ancestral lineage, like you're saying, and
Yeah.
show healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
I mean, you're showing them something that they don't know what it is. It might to them, like you said, seem like the bad guy.
Yeah.
But really what you're doing is saying, I don't talk to people like that, and I don't allow people to talk to me that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that's beautiful. That's
And I
beautiful.
love them from afar. I love them all. They
Sure.
just I think when we don't love ourselves, we don't allow to be loved. And that's kind of where the magic is at, when you really hone into to loving yourself. It's a different story. And it's a different, you can rewrite your whole story.
Absolutely.
Oh, I agree. I agree. The day that I was like, okay, I deserve so much. I mean, just I don't know if I would call falling in love with myself, but I drove my life into a ditch. It was a mess, and I was trying to blame this guy or that person I was dating, or this person, that person. At the end of the day, it was the buck stopped with me, and I was the one that had to clean the mess up, and I did. And I did because I knew I deserved better. I deserved to be treated better by myself.
Yeah.
And that was when big turning point for me.
Isn't that interesting when once we realized that, because I remember I had been working, there was a store that I used to work for, and it was just a very toxic environment. Let's just say.
Yeah.
And I finally kind of got to the point where it just was like very painful it was painful to leave, but it was way more painful to stay.
Mm.
And I remember sitting down because I just right before about just a couple months before I left the store, I had started working with a healer that's here in town, and there were certain qualities that I really respected with this person, and through the healings, it had kind of shown me what really kind of opened my eyes as to what was going on and all the manipulation and craziness that was happening. And so, I just sat down and I wrote a list. These are the types of people I want in my life.
Right.
And I remember just taking just doing just kind of a quick, it was just an evening where I just sat down with some candles and some rituals and just was like, this is what I want. And it was like, from that moment, that's what started showing up.
That's powerful.
And ever since then, it's like life has just gotten better and better and better. And I'm, we're
you're moving through it
better.
And it's better.
Kind of sometimes wake up and go, okay, wow. You just look from where you were to where you are today, and then where you get that glimpse of where you're going, and you're like, okay, wow.
I mean, that echoes for me too. The same thing. Where I'm at today, I couldn't have envisioned it when I was down in that ditch and looking in the mirror going, well, look what you did to yourself. What about you, Elba? Did you find, I'd love to hear kind of like I need better boundaries. I'm ready to heal.
You know what was funny was it was a very I had moments in my life where it was like flashbacks of mistakes that I've made, with my kids, with um, being around my mom and experiencing things at this age still with my mom and still having to deal with things that I dealt with as a kid,
Right. Oh,
and that was like mind blowing because I was just like, wow, like I understand why I behave like you, or why I started the same habit, like and um in my relationship I'll be vulnerable and open, but I have 4 kids and I separated from their dad to get with this person that I'm with now, my fiance. And that was like this thing that I had to really forgive myself, because I made that choice to leave my kids with their father and
mhm.
come out here and live with my mom because I was following love. I was looking for the tension that I wasn't getting in that relationship. And yeah, so seeing that, my mom repeated those patterns and I unconsciously did it. So now I realize like the trauma that I caused on my kids, and like why they don't speak up. And so I'm seeing all these things kind of play out for me, and I'm just recognizing them, and it's just like an awe moment, like it's like, wow, like that's
Yeah.
how deep it is. Like that's how we come to healing and recognizing that from now on with my grandbabies, like I don't yell at them, I don't spank them, I love them, I have fun with them, and there's a different energy there. So it's like that energy is the energy that I want to continue. And realizing as a parent that I no longer control was like the biggest thing, I think, was wanting to control what my kids did or what they did. And now I'm just like, you have the power to make the choice and not look for validation anymore.
Yeah.
So that is like all these healing things in one. It's amazing.
Beautiful. That is beautiful. Yeah, we all make mistakes, or we all do things, whether you're following those generational patterns.
Hmm.
I definitely, I can completely understand what you're saying. But I love that you're in such a new headspace, a paradigm shift, and
Yes.
all of those things.
Yeah.
That it takes so many lifetimes for people to get. I love where we are, and these aren't incarnations in this timeline that we're in, because I work with timelines so much. I view time and space maybe a little bit different than some other people, but I love this timeline where, because we're at what I consider an end
Yeah.
time, and um, it's almost like, okay, now we're all ready to sort of like start having these kind of conversations
Yeah.
instead of blaming mom and dad for everything. We're
Yes.
like, oh, look, I'm a grown person and I'm doing exactly what they did, but that's actually on me.
Yeah. Yeah.
We couldn't have had this conversation in 1950. We couldn't have
Oh
had this
no.
conversation even in the 70s.
Yeah.
Right.
we
I
we
love
were, yeah, we were installed fear, and it's like we lose our voice, and we're like, we wonder why so many kids now are struggling with mental health, because they don't have the capacity to speak to their parents, because they don't want to hear it, because that's what they were told. So it's like my whole goal in being a life coach and learning all these tools is to teach these parents these tools, and to let them know that it's okay to forgive yourself, and it's okay to grow, and it's okay to change, because with that change, we change the mentality in our kids, and we start allowing them to be kids, because I've embraced my own childness. It's like I remember not being able to, feeling uncomfortable dancing, and like, I feel the energy and I love dancing now. Like Cassie actually just treated me
Oh,
uh to go to a concert, and had no idea what kind of workout I was looking forward to, but it was so amazing, and the energy was amazing. Like everybody there was beautiful. There was
oh,
different genders, like ethnicities, like, and everybody was there spiritually. They were being kids, they were being themselves, they were, and that's what matters. And I think that's why we're all doing our work as a healer, right? You're doing it in different modalities. Cassie's
mhm.
doing it different modalities, but how do we do that to work with one another to make this world a better place? And now that you say that we're in a different paradigm, it makes sense why so many people want to wake up.
Yes, it's time. I mean, we've reached we're like what I always say for me, and what I see is 999 a lot. I'm a big numbers person, so that's how I found my husband, was through a number code.
Yeah.
Love the numbers. I see the numbers all the time.
All the time. And that's like when I will get like generally when I'm doing a reading, I'll get a number code for that person. It's not always something I share, because sometimes it's not it doesn't make sense, and then sometimes it's one of the first things I share. It just depends on what spirit tells me. But I see the 999 for the timeline we're on right now, and this where we're at today. And so I'm just excited. I know a lot of people are scared to death, think the world's, everything's coming to hell, but it's not. It's just coming. The next iteration's coming around.
Yeah.
Because we don't ever die. We don't ever really die, and that's a beautiful thing.
It is. And I think until you can see that, you will never see the beauty in anything.
Well, there's fear then. Then what's left, what's in that place is and we've all grown up in that fear-based world. That's why I don't want so many things that are just, it's just either scary or fearful, or you've got a disease, or that's my boundaries. It's like, okay, I've been on that programming treadmill, got off of it, not doing it anymore. And it's just so fear-based. And then there's so much beauty, though, that you don't have to worry.
No, you surrender, right? That's why you surrender to
just do unto others. Just be a beautiful person. People have done horrendous things, but then they learned.
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny that you say that. I think for so many people who always are in this victimhood of, why does this happen to me? Why they're in this rabbit hole that is keeping them in tunnel vision, because they are only focused on the problem and not seeing what's around them. And it's so funny because they'll experience the same thing because that lesson isn't being learned.
No. Then they finally come to some crazy woman and say, why does this pattern keep repeating itself? And I'm like, well, let me get you a mirror out and I'll show you.
Because the universe likes to play that game.
Yeah.
We're like,
well, that's the game we signed up for.
I don't want hey, I went through this lesson. I don't want this lesson again. I've passed the lesson, and the universe goes, hey, I'm going to send it to you in a little different format and see if you actually passed it.
Yeah.
And now, because now there are certain things that I know that I've come up against where I'm like, now I'm a little quicker to see it. And then I'm a little quicker to go,
Rejoin.
You can just no tongue vibe. I'll be like, cool.
Yeah.
But I'm and that's both in my, I think that's just part of the evolving part where it's, and I guess actually all of us on the line, we see it too. Like even with our business, with our practice, we are there, as we hone in and drill in, who is it we want to talk about, who is it that we really truly want to serve? Who's that ideal client? Like in us doing that, we're manifesting what we want.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of that, that's a great segue, because I wanted the most beautiful logo that I could possibly guess. I need to give Cassie a shout out. Of course, it's right behind me, but this beautiful logo you see behind me, our dear host created for me. So if you need logo work and you're listening to this, she's your lady. You both are psychic mediums. Am I right?
Yes. Yes.
So,
and it's funny how spirit brings us all together, right? Because Cassie did my logo and she was inspired by the logo. So
it was her new logo that made me go, I love that. And I really, really did. And we kept going back and forth. And I had this rainbow thing in my head. And I know that you channeled it, Cassie, and I say that all the time because this is not what I had in my head. This is way prettier than I had in my head. So I love it.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
I had one more question too. Is do you do Zoom read? Is it in
Mhm.
person? Is it Zoom? Because I know a lot of people are going to ask that because I most definitely will be doing reaching out to you because I'm very interested
Oh, good.
in
Well, thank you.
the
Yes,
reading.
everything is Zoom right now, and it turns out when I had to pivot when COVID hit, and I had to pivot or shut my doors because I had a home office, which turned out to not be a great idea during a pandemic because I had 2 clients come in that were positive but didn't know it. Now, I'm not the only person that lives in this house, so that was
Yeah.
very dangerous. So I moved and figured out how to do Zoom and get people to relax in their own space, and it works better. People are more comfortable in their own space. So I do Zoom. I also do one thing I wanted to talk about is the galactic Akashic record readings that I do because a lot of people are just getting used to multiple timelines or other lives or reincarnation, all that gets comfortable. But I'm super excited about our galactic citizenship that is also a big part of some of the training I've been doing, and it's fascinating to me. And it's a new thing that has I trained with lady named Debbie Solaris. She's sort of the queen mother of galactic lives. And like, where did you spend time? Like, for example, some people are like, why do I am so obsessed with Arcturus, for example.
Yeah.
And so she's kind of the queen of that type of reading, and that's who I trained with. And she's on the Gaia channel a lot. But anyway, so just if you're ever interested in so many people are like, I just don't feel like I belong on Earth. I feel like I'm from another planet. That's the person that's going to love these readings. If you're not interested in that, that's great too. But I do love being able to delve into that dimension as well.
Oh, that's awesome. I just recently fell upon Bashar.
Oh,
I don't know.
yeah.
Oh, he is amazing. And
He is an Essassani. He's an
oh my,
Essassani.
yeah. So my mentor, another mentor of mine, has shared him with us. She's like, I don't even know who this guy is, but he's teaching everything that I teach. And she's just like, where has he been? Like, how did I not know who he is? But it's
We could
very,
talk about that.
yeah, it's just so interesting how all of these dimensions work and
Yeah,
how the more we evolve and the more we heal, the more higher our vibe is.
Absolutely.
absolutely. And
And I
so
feel that's how we outgrow people, right?
you planned it, so there's no mistakes made.
Mm-hmm.
It's just growth. It's just all growth. And the person that was your partner in a time, and now that you've outgrown that, now they're going to grow too. And yes, there obviously are some hurt feelings, etc., when those things happen. But it's a beautiful thing in the end, and it you plan so much. It's not by mistake.
I'm sure.
It makes
Yeah.
sense. But yeah, no, I love Bashar, and I know we don't have enough time to go on into the type of
Yeah, but
energy that he's channeling and just what that represents for humanity in the future, because I can freak people out about that. But
yeah.
it's all so amazing, and I just love the messages.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, we are floating in the universe.
Yes.
Yes.
There is so much out there that we have no idea what's out there, So I think when we're so closed-minded, we forget the reality,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, but to accept it and to embrace it will just make your life that much more.
Yeah, just accept. I mean, there are so many beautiful souls that don't originate from Earth.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's fascinating when you start tapping into what's really going on, and the Galactic Federation. And I'm going to dweeb nerd out on y'all, but just love it. And yeah, so, and I had to come to terms with what people, I have some really dear friends that are like, what
Mhm.
are you into now?
You
And I
just
get
follow
it.
you follow what you feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We are at the top of the hour. So it is that time. Because honestly, we could just keep going on and we would love to do that. But, we also realize that.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. This was so fun.
It was.
How they can find you.
MusicCityHealing.com is my website, and you can hop on there and get a clarity call or set up an appointment. Because sometimes people don't know what they want to do for sure. So I always put the clarity call out there, but it's everything is on there for MusicCityHealing.com.
Wonderful.
And it's 2 C's, MusicCityHealing.com. Okay. Yes.
There you go. All right. So Elba, how can they reach you?
You can find me on Instagram at Medium Elba, and also on Facebook under Elba Gardon. My website will soon be out there into the world. Cassie's been working with Cassie and Kobe on getting all of the little things finished up, but I'm ready to come out of that closet and just start booking and doing readings and being of service like I was meant to be.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Fantastic. And once again, my name is Cassie Clayton, Stargazers Unite. You can find me on all social media platforms, stargazers.unite or stargazersunite.com. And we just want to thank Leslie. We want to thank you one more time for coming and joining us for the show. It really is such a fascinating topic.
Mm-hmm.
And so we will see everyone in 2 weeks for our next show.
Yeah.
Y'all have a good night.
Good
night, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.